In the world's wealthiest nation, 1 in 7 adults doesn't know where their next meal is coming from. This country, with a defense budget of $877 billion, can't guarantee millions of its citizens will have enough to eat. While corporate profits hit record highs, food prices have skyrocketed 11% in a year, twice the rate of wage growth. American workers who built this country are forced to count every penny. If this is the land of opportunity, why does the American dream now start with an empty shopping cart? If bare refrigerators have become the new normal, we have to ask, what else is being taken from the American dream? The paradox of working, yet still going hungry. A CBS News survey shows 2/3 of Americans are financially anxious, and 3/4 say their income can't keep up with inflation. Many say Americans are working longer hours than ever before, yet still going hungry. Nearly 60% of American adults live paycheck to paycheck. Money arrives and immediately vanishes. They're not living large, they're just paying for the basics: rent, gas, medical bills. In the end, the fridge is still empty. About 2/3 of people receiving government food assistance actually have jobs. They're not lazy. They work every day, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, and still line up at food banks on weekends. Michelle, a 37-year-old teacher in St. Louis County, Minnesota, shares, "I've been teaching since 2008. I didn't go into this profession for the money. I did it out of love. But because of that, a lot of people like me have to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. When eggs and bacon prices go up, we eat cereal every morning to save money." After school, she delivers food for hours, making just $4.50 per order plus tips. She says she has to save every penny. "Sometimes I even eat my kids' leftovers to save money." Most people making decisions for us are wealthy. They don't understand what it feels like to work 2 jobs or buy gas with coins. If they understood that ordinary people are just fighting to survive every day, maybe they'd make fairer decisions. When wages can't keep up with the cost of living. The federal minimum wage has been stuck at $7.25 an hour since 2009, meaning for over a decade, everything has gone up except income. During that time, rent increased over 30%, medical costs rose 40%, not to mention food and other living expenses. Today, a full-time job is only enough to pay bills, not to sustain life. In 2009, working 1 hour could buy about 5 pounds of beef. Now the same labor only buys 2 pounds. Same effort, same time, but less dinner, less protein. When an adult stands in front of a shelf having to choose between a pack of meat and a tank of gas, this is clearly no longer a personal story. It's a structural problem. If working still isn't enough to eat, isn't enough to live, then who exactly are we working for? Survival in the inflation storm. Media says American inflation has cooled, but reality is prices are still nearly 24% higher than pre-pandemic. Olivia, a 70-year-old from Santa Fe, New Mexico, shares that after paying rent, she has less than $200 left to live on. "I can't retire. Social Security isn't enough to cover expenses, so I still have to look for work. I've worked my whole life, and now I can't enjoy my later years." It's heartbreaking. She worked in retail, and despite her age still had to move heavy items. Every day she goes to the library to search for jobs online. "I applied to Walgreens, but haven't heard back yet." Food prices jump every time she blinks, so now she only buys where it's cheap. In 2022 alone, food prices rose an average of over 11%, reaching the highest level since 1979. Some necessities even jumped 30 to 40%. No wage can keep up with that pace. Why are prices rising so dramatically? The answer isn't just the pandemic or transportation costs. It's an entire domino effect. Post-pandemic supply chain disruptions, skyrocketing logistics costs, fuel price increases driving up costs at every stage from farm to supermarket. Food giants controlling most of the value chain, not hesitating to maintain record profits, while people cut back on every meal. The consequences aren't just numbers on a bill. They're battles fought in every family's kitchen. Retirees on fixed incomes are swept away by rising prices. "My pension hasn't gone up, but a carton of milk now costs $2 more." Middle-class families are forced to cut back on fresh food. Fresh vegetables give way to canned goods. Fresh meat becomes frozen hot dogs. Low-income families have no choice. Dinner is often just instant noodles and sandwiches. In 2025, American inflation is no longer a dry economic concept. It's an empty fridge. It's that sigh at the checkout. It's that moment standing in front of the beef display thinking, do I really need to eat meat this week? Food deserts, the invisible hunger map. You can buy cigarettes on every corner, but to get fresh vegetables, you have to drive 20 minutes. Sounds strange, but this is the daily reality for millions of Americans. Welcome to food deserts, places with almost no fresh food. According to USDA data, over 19 million Americans live in these conditions. These aren't remote, isolated areas. Many are in the hearts of major cities, just not on retail companies' profit maps. Why does this absurdity happen? Simple answer: money. Big chain supermarkets avoid low-income areas because profit margins are thin. They choose to open stores where people will pay double for organic products, not where every penny is carefully counted. When there's no supermarket, people without cars, usually also poor, are trapped. They rely on small independent stores where an apple might cost twice what it does at a supermarket, and fresh vegetables are as rare as snow in Arizona in July. The consequences aren't limited to diet. Cheaper food is usually canned, loaded with sugar, fat, and salt, leading to obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. As health deteriorates and medication costs increase, food spending continues to shrink, a vicious cycle tightening, turning a food problem into a public health crisis. In Detroit, a community of over 12,000 people has no major supermarket within a 3.5-mile radius. One resident says, I have to choose between paying $20 for a ride to Walmart or eating instant noodles for another week. This is the most thought-provoking part. Society celebrates freedom of choice, but for millions, the only choice is high prices, low quality, and poor health. In other words, the so-called free market isn't free at all, at least not for your stomach. Middle-class families in the suburbs might choose between 12 vegetables and 6 types of meat. Poor families downtown choose between 2 types of instant noodles. Their so-called supermarket is a 24-hour convenience store where salad in the fridge is a rarity. The welfare trap. The harder you try, the poorer you get. If you think welfare is a safety net helping poor people climb to the next level, think again. In reality, it often acts like a rope tying them to the bottom. The harder they struggle, the tighter the rope gets. SNAP is America's largest food assistance program, providing about $6 per person per day on average. Not much, but enough to bridge the gap between hunger and being fed. The problem is, if you earn a few more dollars per hour, you might lose all assistance. The result? Millions of Americans face a painful paradox. Working harder actually makes them poorer. Here's how the trap works. The welfare system is designed around income thresholds. Below the threshold, you get support. Exceed the limit even slightly, and subsidies can disappear completely. This creates an absurd phenomenon called the welfare cliff. Workers calculate and realize that working 5 more hours per week might cause them to lose hundreds of dollars in food stamps, childcare, healthcare, and other benefits. The entire benefits package gets cut, and their net income after the raise is actually less than before. Maria, a single mother in Florida, was offered a raise. Sounds like good news. But if she accepts, she'll lose $400 a month in SNAP benefits that currently feed her 2 kids. She declined, not because I'm lazy, but because it's simple math. Pride can't go in my children's soup bowls. The long-term impact is hard to measure. It might be a family not daring to work overtime or learn new skills because they're already at the edge. It might be workers trapped at the bottom, right where the system promised to pull them out. Worse, children grow up in poverty not because their parents don't try hard, but because their efforts lead nowhere. We call it a safety net, but for many, it's a spider web. Once you fall in, you're stuck in that position, while society looks at them with judgment. Why don't you move forward, when the law itself has built an invisible wall right in front of them? Congressional Budget Office analysis shows nearly 25% of low-wage workers say they've refused promotions or overtime because they're afraid of losing benefits. This isn't laziness, it's a survival strategy. Social time bomb, the chain reaction of hunger. History teaches us one thing. Every empire can collapse when its people can't eat. What's most frightening is that America is closer to that line than ever before. Look at the current situation. Americans today must spend over 13% of their income just to buy food. the highest number in over 30 years. From New York to San Francisco, supermarket food theft is surging. In 2023, over 1.2 million U.S. students were considered homeless. These are no longer just scattered stories. They're signals of a society stretched to its limits. The mechanism is simple. When people can't meet the most basic need, eating enough, they stop caring about laws, politics, or nice speeches. Trust in the system collapses, and that void is quickly filled by anger or even the risk of extremism. Let's remember history. Not every revolution starts with speeches. Most start with rising bread prices. In Los Angeles, dozens of community fridges are popping up on street corners, where people voluntarily leave free food for anyone who needs it. Sounds beautiful and humane, but think deeper. A society that prides itself on being the wealthiest on the planet has to rely on fridges placed on sidewalks to feed the poor. This is no longer kindness. It's a sign the system is cracking. The chain reaction of hunger is more alarming than we think. The middle class starts to fear, cuts spending, slowing the economic engine. The elderly worry about the future, withdraw savings, putting pressure on the financial system. Politicians start exploiting anger, turning poverty into a campaign weapon. We pour billions into the defense budget every year to protect the nation from external threats, while what might make society more vigilant is left in empty baskets. A country that can send people to Mars struggles to ensure lunch for public school children. Think of a pressure cooker heating up. Internal pressure gradually increases. At first you only hear a slight hiss, but if you don't release the pressure, it explodes. Today's America is the same. That pot is society itself, and every time food prices rise a few cents, the pressure increases. The ultimate question is no longer whether the poor have food to eat, but how long this society can last before empty stomachs become the fuse. Personal response: adjusting sails in the storm. We can't change the wind direction, but we can adjust our sails. In a storm of rising prices, poverty, and social unrest, Americans still have ways to protect themselves and prepare for the future. Smart budgeting, strategic consumption. In a turbulent economy, budgeting is no longer a small matter. Track weekly expenses, know exactly where money is going. Shift from emotional spending to strategic spending. Prioritize essential food. Cut unnecessary luxuries. Shop smarter. Look for deals. Buy seasonally. Use coupons. Take advantage of local produce. NerdWallet research shows that just by planning shopping and preparing meals in advance, a family can save an average of 20 to 25% on food costs per month. Redefine security, starting with self-sufficiency. You don't need to live like a 19th century farmer, but growing vegetables at home, participating in food exchange communities, or cooperating with neighbors to buy food in bulk are all effective ways to reduce dependence on a system with volatile prices. In fact, seemingly old-fashioned skills like cooking at home or planning weekly menus are the most powerful economic vaccines during inflationary times. Community engagement, because no one can survive alone. In many cities, community food pantries or food co-op models not only help reduce food costs, but also rebuild trust among residents. When many people share resources together, costs drop and strength increases. Closing: the dream doesn't end. The American dream won't end because of overpriced grocery bills or empty refrigerators. It will restart every time people learn to stand together, speak with one voice, and take control of their own lives. The question is, will you wait for someone else to change everything, or will you start adjusting your sails today? You may have never had to choose between a carton of eggs and a tank of gas, but that day might not be far off. This crisis isn't just about the poor. It's a test of the entire society, whether we can still maintain compassion, fairness, and the ability to unite. Now I want to hear your thoughts. In your view, what's the deepest root cause of millions of Americans not being able to afford food? What's the most practical solution to break this cycle? Please leave a comment below, and let's discuss together. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss in-depth analysis videos on American social and economic issues that mainstream media often avoids.